No damage done for New York City FC in the expansion draft. Some damage, though, with Manchester City, and far fewer eyes on this year's MLS Cup. We've got that and a whole lot more coming up on NYCFC Views Live.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene el tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right. I'm in Jersey, but I was in New York City a little earlier. I'm Glenn Crooks. There's Roberto Abramowitz. You ever been to Friedman's, Roberto?
No, where is it?
It's right near New York Penn Station. And I had an old high school friend who happened to be in town. And I said, and he's staying in the city for a few days. So I said, let's meet at Friedman. It's like a 1-minute walk from it. It's really a good place. Supposedly it's pretty well known, but I just looked up.
Cool.
I looked up breakfast close to New York Penn, and that's what popped up. So that's
And
where
breakfast was good?
breakfast was good.
Awesome.
Then I get home, and I get this Oscar Peterson album that I ordered. Have you ever ordered anything off of Discogs? It's called.
No,
It's
I have not. I haven't done like that sort of stuff since Columbia Records stopped doing deals.
well, that's a shame. But it's LPs mostly, but it's also compact disc, I guess. And but Oscar Peterson is one of this. He's just it's jazz. Many people watching or listening have maybe heard the name, but have never heard him play the piano. It's just really incredible stuff. Anyway, I've always liked him, and my daughter, who was obviously raised well, is also an Oscar Peterson fan, and this is a Christmas gift for her. So,
very nice.
so I got that when I got home, and then an hour later, I talked to Nick Raimondo for 45 minutes, which was pretty fun. So there you go. That was my day so far, and now I get to talk to you.
That sounds like it's a pretty good day.
Yes.
Doesn't match mine though.
Well, you went to get your boy.
I went to get Etty. Etty is home. I'm very happy.
Yeah. Well, let him stay up there every now and then on a weekend, Roberto, instead of always going up there to get him.
No. It's they kicked him out. He's here for 5 weeks.
Okay.
It's like, nah, you have no choice. You gotta leave. We're closing everything down.
Wow.
And
So,
I'm like, all right,
so he's already on holiday break?
that is accurate.
Wow. Rutgers doesn't shut down until, well, I guess it's pretty soon. I forget that it's
Yeah,
later
it's
in
soon,
December.
but
It's
he's the
getting
first
there.
one. He has the longest break. And by the way, Marist has announced that they no longer will be known as Marist College, but Marist University.
Oh, I think colleges should stay as they are. That's got to be an image thing, right? Like more people will apply if we're called a university than a college.
No, they said that basically their reasoning was that they've expanded throughout the years, and that a college doesn't really describe what they are anymore. And so it's university is much more apropos for what they're doing.
All right. We're
I
not
mean,
a
they have a
college.
campus of over 5,000 people, and they also have a campus, I think it's in Florence, Italy.
I don't know. All right.
Could be worse.
That's a good spot, man. That's a good spot. All right. Well, since we last spoke, there's been an MLS Cup final, of which not a whole lot of people watched it, apparently. I mean, that was a pretty. Now, look, we don't have the.
Wait, we got to put that in context. Hold
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Thank you. We don't have the Apple TV numbers, number one, but that's okay as far as comparing this year to last year. And it was almost a 50% reduction in eyes. And the game kicked off at exactly the same time as last year, 4 p.m. Eastern. Columbus LAFC last year and LA Galaxy Red Bulls, which I thought would have had a lot of eyes on it. I mean, I guess 500,000 people is okay, but I thought it was the kind of matchup that, two original franchise. That's the way they were, promoting it. And I thought that was a good way to look at it. And Red Bulls had never won, even though they've got the longest streak of being in the playoffs. Galaxy, they've had this 10-year vacancy of putting a trophy in their case. And now they've extended their MLS record. But I don't know. What's your context?
Okay, so the context for me is this. First of all, as you said the first thing. We don't know what the Apple TV numbers are, right? And
but we didn't know that last year either.
No, I get that. I get that.
Okay.
And Apple TV is free for the final. You don't need a subscription. You don't need MLS Season Pass. You got that. The game was on Fox and on Fox Deportes, where combined total was like 450,000 people compared to 827. Do we have the graphic, Shane, or did it not work?
No, it was over 900. It was closer to 1 million. It was
so it's half that. So obviously there's a problem.
It was a 47% reduction. That was the exact figure.
Yes, and so and I think that the major thing is that when it comes to MLS and it comes to certain teams, a lot of it is star driven, or at least very well known player driven. And when you had the final last year and you had LAFC, you still had Carlos Vela. And still, you're probably your most significant fan base in the United States continues to be Mexican. So I'm sure that there was a substantial amount of people that wanted to watch the game because Vela was there. But then again, it wasn't only Vela, right? I mean, there was a lot more, marquee names that were on that team. So, you had that part going for you as far as that. And when you look at these teams, right? You look at these two teams, the Red Bulls. There's no marquee names whatsoever. Red Bulls have a very hard time selling out their own stadium, which holds 25,000, and they get, even though they increased their fan base this year as far as attendance is concerned, it's still below 20,000. So, they don't register very heavily. I mean, New York City registers a little bit more, but that's the way that is. And then the LA Galaxy lost their marquee player, which is Ricky Puig, which I don't even know if he's that much of a personal attraction. I don't know if people literally tune in. Now, the Galaxy themselves are a hell of a lot of fun to watch. And you and I spoke about that and have been speaking about this throughout the playoffs and throughout the season. But although it was, when you look at New York, LA, you would think huge marquee matchup. But the fact of the matter is that the Red Bulls are not a marquee franchise within MLS. The Galaxy are, but they didn't have any huge marquee players. Marco Royce, is he really a draw or not? And as good as Peck and Paintsel are, I don't know if they're draws.
All right, so you've made your point on that, and that may be valid. I mean, I don't, there weren't massive marquee players last year. How about the fact that since most of the games are behind a paywall during the regular year, that maybe the more casual sort of fan, or even as one person tweeted, they are a Red Bull fan for life, and they saw very few games this year because they don't have Apple. So that made it less attractive. And you wonder how much that's playing a role. So that balancing act of that large contract that was signed by MLS with Apple, which is obviously beneficial, but offset that with, and I know they're fighting hard. I mean, they've got a guy in that office, in that MLS office, who's going out. I think I said this once before. He's traveling the country and walking into bars and saying, please get Apple TV. In fact, we're going to give it to you. Just please put the MLS games on when people are in your bar. And, that's going to go a long way, too, because I think they lose a lot there.
That would definitely help. I agree. It's not a perfect solution, right? Alexi Lalas had a good tweet on that earlier today, and a lot of people responded. I chimed in as well. There are pros and cons to this. I mean, had they stayed with the same model, they weren't going to make anywhere near as much money. Did they go with Apple? It's a different, it's a different animal. Yes, it's a subscription. Is it an ordinary subscription? It's an ornery subscription, rather. It's not, right? If you don't have Apple TV at all, right?
Right.
then it's $99. If you have the Apple TV subscription, it's $79. If you're a season ticket holder, it's free. So because they give you Apple TV, this MLS season pass with your season tickets. So
Well, but this
they're trying to do that, and then I don't know if T-Mobile still had the free one and all that, but there's a lot.
A big part of,
if you look at it, it's $8.25 a month if you get the top, the $99 a year. It's $8.25 a month. Which is with cable and everything else that you're getting, it's a different animal. It's not that much.
I just think we're going to play a clip of a SiriusXM guest of mine. He's going to be talking about the Manchester City situation a little bit. Just going to play a clip from that interview. But he's an example of this global desire to get more eyes across the sea. He doesn't have Apple TV, so he's not watching MLS. And
he's not. But also, MLS doesn't do itself any favors if they're really that interested in the European market, right? We understand that we're 4, 5, and 6, right? 4, 5, and 6 hours behind, depending where you are. And so, if you have all 7:30 kickoffs, it's after midnight, so it doesn't make any sense. And so there should be more afternoon games. To me, the Apple has to put more windows in, and we can do a full show on what we think Apple can do better. Okay. I can definitely talk about this for hours. Okay. But quickly, there should be probably a Friday night game. There should be a 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then do the 7:30 games. And then do the 8:30 games, and then 10:30 games, right? But there should be more windows to have more games, and you'll have more people. Now, MLS said, Don Garber said that they're averaging around $1 million views a weekend, right? But that's all games. And then you have a lot of your season ticket holders
I didn't aren't
watching because they're at the game.
I did when I heard that million figure, I didn't. At first, it sounds, okay. And then when you think about it, it's not a large figure when you're considering it's all the games, right?
Yes, it's not a large figure. But then again, people have to choose. You have 7 or 8 games at 7:30 to choose from. Yeah, and then if you're a season ticket holder, then you're at the game. You're not watching any of those games.
They should almost do it just almost as an experiment, and see if they double that figure or increase it by 50% or whatever. But here's what I would think about Europe and South America, or just this global thing. I would say rather than try to put like multiple games on from multiple MLS games on so that their eyes can be on it in prime time or when they're not asleep, just do a game of the week for Europe. Do a game of the week for Europe and make it a good matchup, man. You don't have to. It's okay if you show the Galaxy 3 times and you never show
2 p.m.
Never show New England. Who cares?
Miami.
Yeah.
Show Messi. Do that. You have to have a 2 p.m. game.
Yeah.
I think you need a 2 p.m. game, or you can do 2, 5, and then 7:30, or you can do 1:30, 3:30. 5:30 and then 7:30, and then have a whole bunch of games at 7:30. But have singular games, especially the better games. Have those as a singular matchup during the afternoons, so people can tune into those games. I mean, what I used to love about watching MLS on days that we weren't working was watching multiple games. But if you're bringing everything into Saturday and most of them at 7:30. We're working from, we get to the stadium, anywhere between 3 hours before a game. We don't get home to 2 hours after a game. And by that time, the only thing that's left is a 10:30 game. And you watch an hour of that, and then you're like, oh my God, I got to get to sleep because
so you make more
12:30.
Yeah, you end up watching more of that than I do. But the only time we see games really live is if they have that rare afternoon game. We get to the stadium early and we can actually watch that game before our game. But you're not watching it closely, but you're still watching.
No, because we're doing notes. We're figuring out what we got to do. We got to see if our equipment works. Got to eat. There's a lot of things, and so you just have it on in the background.
So Don Garber did his State of MLS address, and we're going to get to the expansion draft here. As New York City lost a player, but not really. But Don Garber, more teams will be in the U.S. Open Cup this year, senior teams, first teams, and less teams at Leagues Cup. So we know that. And here's his quote, Roberto. We will likely have more teams and believe with tournament play if we can manage it with 30 teams or at least one team in one tournament is good for the club, is good for the fans, and have an opportunity to lift the trophy. So basically what he's saying is there's 30 teams next year. All of them will play in at least one of these.
Exactly. So it seems like, for what we've heard, and this is not official, and maybe it is, and I don't know it, but it seems like it's going to be all 18 Mexican teams and 18 selected teams from MLS. And how are they going to mix up and do the games? I'm not sure. What we do know is that all games will still be played in the United States, which is absurd. But we understand that the reasoning is that no matter how much they charge for tickets in Mexico and how many people go, it's still a losing proposition versus of what they can make over here. I could argue differently about, some of those games that were played in front of 1,000 people, if that. When Juarez played Pachuca or something like that. But we can make that argument. But then that means that there's going to be 12 teams that are going to be in the U.S. Open Cup. And that also means that 18 teams are going to have their B teams in the U.S. Open Cup, meaning NYCFC 2, if NYCFC doesn't play Leagues Cup. And they better play Leagues Cup, because I'll be really pissed if they're not.
Well, the way I was going to say, Brad Sims, we little scrum after the groundbreaking last week, and we played that full interview on last week's show. If you want to hear it and haven't yet, it's available. It's also available on my podcast called On Frame. But he remember what he said. He said, "Well, I can't tell you what's going to happen, but he said the New York City fans are going to be very happy, which means probably hosting 2 good games against Mexican teams." That's what it sounds like to me.
I mean, I hope you're right, and it's
why would they be very?
They didn't make CONCACAF Champions League, because I wanted to go travel to Mexico. I want to do a game in Mexico. I want to do a game in Guatemala again, or Costa Rica, or Panama. I hope awesome.
I just hope he didn't say it like that, and it's going to be U.S. Open Cup games, because that is not anything to get really excited about. Although I still am a proponent of all first teams playing in that. But you see, they've got to figure out this Leagues Cup, figure out the schedule, and that is all understood.
And by the way, as far as the U.S. Open Cup is concerned, and I've had this problem with the U.S. Open Cup for years, and it's not the cup itself; it's the way U.S. Soccer does it and promotes it, and it just doesn't resonate until maybe the Final Four, and then some TV network picks it up and does it, and they don't normally do it until they figure out who the Final Four is and if they're interesting teams and they've got interesting players. So if Inter Miami is going to be there, like it was 2 years ago. It was like, whoa, we got to be there. And, I think it was Telemundo jumped in and then somebody else where you didn't expect that. So,
but don't forget, Apple did a feature on Messi and did not include U.S. Open Cup. I will never forget that. It was, and that was at a time where Don Garber had made some comments in regard to the U.S. Open Cup that were certainly not, didn't make it any more attractive to Apple, but it seems like there's been a bit more coordination as to how to make it work. All right, Roberto, let's go back to let me turn the page back, and
you got all the notes.
I think it should be noted too that the NWSL final and the USL championship game both outdrew the MLS Cup final on the linear channels.
Yes.
Channel. Those 2 games appeared on the CBS network, which is, more available to probably a greater sector of the country too. So
wait, hold on. The game MLS Cup was on Fox. It was Channel 5 here in New York. It wasn't Fox Sports. It was Fox.
Right.
Big Brother Fox.
So
they were all on level. You could say level this time. Level playing ground.
Well, that's pretty amazing that those two championship games outdrew MLS Cup. That's something to look at and be at least. You can't be at least slightly alarmed by that if you're an MLS muckety muck. You can't.
Well, but then again, I mean, those are pretty much the only place where they were, and you know that there's going to be a lot of people that just by rote will go to Apple TV and watch it on Apple TV, especially because they know the announcers are going to be there and the clarity of the picture and all of that, because they don't need cable sometimes compresses a picture and it doesn't look as good. I prefer to watch it on Apple. I watched the game on Apple. I didn't watch it on Fox. So I'm somebody who watched the game and didn't register for Fox.
Well, here's
there was another point I wanted to make on that.
Well, before we leave,
I can't think of it for the moment. So go ahead.
And your boy Twellman, who was on that Apple broadcast, he brought up something pretty cool here. If you don't have it in front of you, pull up the list of teams in MLS. Pull up the standings on MLSsoccer.com, because I'm going to ask you something in a second.
Okay, hold on. Let me just find that.
The last 3 MLS Cup champions did not make the playoffs the previous year. That's LAFC, Columbus, and now the LA Galaxy. That's pretty remarkable, and I think that's also a testament to how in this league, if it doesn't go well one year, you can come back and win it the next. So Twellman put up a post, and it was a good one. He said, so that's happened. So who is the team? Can you pick a team? Who is the team that will make it 4 years in a row that didn't make the playoffs this year, but will win it all next year? I thought it was a good one. Ooh. And as I looked at all the teams, I just don't have faith in any of them to win MLS Cup. But
hold on, let me see. I just looked at the East, and God, that's a nightmare.
The West is worse.
Is it? I don't know about that.
Austin, Dallas,
Dallas is trading 2 of their best players, so that I don't know what they're going to replace them with.
Austin has a lot of roster work to do. St. Louis, they're under a new manager, so we'll see how that goes.
Sporting KC is doing a lot of turnover.
Yeah, so
and
the
San
West
Jose, you know what? I'll go with Bruce.
Oh, please.
I'll go with the Bruce in San Jose.
All right, well that's not that's not the worst pick, I suppose.
By the way, going to tell me who's won more championships than the Bruce.
No one.
Exactly.
Nope.
Now in the East, to make it there, oh God,
I'm going to go with Nashville and my boy BJ Callahan. And Mike Jarvis, who's the general manager. Two good guys here from the Northeast, and there's a lot to do there, but I think it'll be organized in a manner where they will concede far fewer goals. Their problem was they only scored 38 goals in 34 games. That's almost impossible. I mean, so they
37 goals, by the way, and they had a minus 30. Oh no, the New England was 37 goals.
Yeah, New England was,
and they had a minus 37.
That's beyond incredible as well. But
they allowed 74 goals.
Caleb Porter, I don't know how many years he aged last year, and I don't know how the hell he slept. When you're giving up goals like 74 goals conceded. 74. Was that a record? No.
I don't know if it's a record, but it's a hell of a lot.
Well, it was the most
really
conceded
is. DC,
in MLS.
DC United conceded 70, which isn't great. They have Benteke, and now they have a goalkeeper who's like, all right, we'll see what Luis Barraza can do there. If he even starts, I think he's going to be a backup there too. Based on what I've read, that they were going to bring in a goalie from Asia. I didn't see where. But I don't know if I don't know where he's from. I didn't see it. I just
let's get Steve Goff
read
on the
that
line.
It was Asia. I didn't know where.
All right, so that's one of the notes that we need to bring forth. Luis,
if somebody knows, send it in the comments. We're getting comments, by the way. Ooh, we're getting a lot of comments.
All right. So Kevin Rogers watched MLS Cup on Apple. Herman, these guys are all regulars.
Okay, let me tell you. Herman Echeverria.
Herman Echeverria. Is that right, Herman? I've been calling him Herman. I like the Herman.
Herman.
I like Herman better.
Echeverria.
Yeah.
I'm sure that everybody here calls him Herman.
Sorry,
I'm
Herman.
Sure they do.
Sorry.
You can put these up, Shane. You can put some of these up, and we'll read through them.
So let's go to Barraza, though. So Luis Barraza, who near and dear to the hearts of many, and it's
Herman in English. All right.
Okay, and I speak English. So what am I going to do? Barraza goes to DC United, $50K GAM plus an additional $150K in incentives. So if you see the figure 200, that doesn't count yet. It's 50 plus incentives, and he's not reaching incentives unless he's in goal every game. So, or at least most of them. So Luis has some work to do, but great for him. He's not obviously Matt Freese. Matt Freese, the hope for the New York City Football Club, and I can say this with confidence, is that Matt Freese will play 300 games in the sky blue kit. Well, he doesn't wear sky blue, in the green or whatever color he decides to come up with. And he'll be the goalkeeper when the stadium opens in 27. So that's where it's at with Matt Freese. And
yeah, absolutely. Why not?
So Barraza gets his chance at DC.
He's earned it. Matt Freese has absolutely earned it.
Now the draft occurred, this expansion draft, which is always interesting because there were over like 300 players, left unprotected, and San Diego could only pick 5 and no more than 1 per team. So the only one we're going to talk about, unless you want to talk about some of the others, I don't, is Thiago Andrade. So Shane just put up the picture of him now. This came from Toronto FC because San Diego drafted him in the expansion draft because he was left unprotected. He's on loan to a Chinese team. New York City FC has loaned him, and now he's no longer New York City property. And then he was traded to Toronto. And out of all this, New York City gets a $50K GAM. But there he is in his New York City kit in the Toronto FC post. I like that. And
very good.
Yeah. So Andrade. So I wanted to go back to June 27th, 2021 with you, Roberto. And it really was one of the great goals in New York City history. It was a huge goal that season. And it was Thiago scoring the game-winning stoppage time again at Red Bull Arena, which we'll talk about in a minute too, has now changed its name. Here's the call. Me and Matty Lawrence on the call on the network. I wanted to share this.
New York City keeper with the save. He rolls it out quickly to Thiago. It's a 2-on-2 break. Thiago does wisely by pushing it past Donovan Pines. He's at the top of the area. Back to his left. Here's the shot. It's a goal on the counterattack for Thiago. Sean Johnson, the huge save. Then he catches the service after Arriola was denied point blank. The distribution by Sean Johnson. Thiago pushing it past Donovan Pines. And then finishing for New York City FC at the death. New York City FC 2 and DC United 1.
Yes, Thiago has run 90 yards. Yes, he's placed the ball into the back of the net. But let's credit Sean Johnson, Glenn. A wonderful save. Then the gather after it as the ball comes back into the box. And the assist for Sean Johnson as he rolls it out quickly. He absolutely does Donovan Pines. Pines should have fouled Thiago on the halfway line. Didn't get onto him. And Thiago, as he breaks into the penalty area, cloys it back past Pines, and on the left foot, side foot finish, passes it into the back of the net. Absolutely majestic counter-attack, one end to the other from NYCFC, Glenn.
Well, I've been doing games, every game since 2015, the inaugural season. I have never seen a team celebration of a goal like that.
And it was true.
That was awesome.
They were down 1-0 in the game, and then that's the 5th minute of stoppage time. And now they're reunited. So maybe Sean Johnson will roll it out to Thiago up in Toronto.
Do that again.
For a 90-yard
So here
run.
are his numbers, by the way. He was playing in China, in Shenzhen Peng City. He played 24 games this year, scored 3 goals, had 3 assists. And one of the goals was in the Cup in 2 games. He, in the Super League, 2 goals, 3 assists in 22 games. His rating, by the way, was, according to FOTMOB, 7.0, which is the best in his career. So he's not a huge goal scorer, but he seems to be doing things that are helping the team. And we'll see what he does for Toronto next year And they don't have a coach there yet, do they?
They do not. So we mentioned Jim Curtin for New York City last week. Jim Curtin's also been mentioned for Toronto FC.
And Atlanta.
And so Curtin will have a job, we suspect, with some.
And lots of moolah.
And lots of moolah. And so there it is, Thiago. And Jason Hernandez, he's the general manager up there now at Toronto. And he told John Molinaro today, we've had Molinaro on the show. He writes the TFC Republic, it's called. And he covers both Toronto and also the national teams north of the border. But Jason Hernandez told him today that Thiago can play in a front two, which, okay, or left wing. We saw him score there right wing.
Right wing.
Did
we ever see him on left wing? I guess so. I guess he played left wing too.
So, but as a twin striker, I don't know. But he can run. If he's along the last line of defense, maybe that's what he means. Let it.
If they're going to be playing balls over the top against a high line defense, and maybe he's the guy. Now, can he just put it in the back of the net though?
Yeah, well, he didn't get behind the defense very much for New York City. Not enough considering his speed. And that was one of the things I think the club had issue with, and why they were willing to loan him. And I'm sure a sigh of relief, because Thiago Andrade was not coming back to New York City FC.
No.
That was not happening. So the fact that he's left unprotected and he's selected, and that means some of the others, which I'm sure they had a great idea that they weren't going to get picked. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes we don't know about. I think this expansion draft thing is kind of fun. Like some teams, getting an international or selling an international roster spot to them for half the price of what it normally goes, knowing that, so now you can't touch any of our players, okay? Just making these side deals. I think it's fun.
So Columbus basically had, sold them for, sold $100,000 for something that's worth $200,000, and like wink, wink.
San Diego acquired Andres Reyes, who his name came up quite often in that MLS Cup final, because moments before kickoff, he was a scratch, which was a huge detriment to the Red Bulls. And now he's a member of San Diego needed center backs, and now they got one in Andres Reyes.
Well, they still have a lot of roster to fill out.
Oh yeah, but I'm just saying they needed it. They had one center back, a guy from Northern Ireland who they had signed. Philadelphia Union traded all their draft choices for the next 3 years to Colorado for 350,000 GAM. Now that's not anything new for Ernst Tanner, but that's a total of 8 picks, 3 in the first round. Crazy.
And he doesn't want to even deal with the draft. He doesn't. It's like something I don't want to even. It's not going to help our club. I mean, it might, but for him, he's got other ways of doing things. So
he believes, he has said it publicly, that players at that age are, I don't know how exactly he phrased it, but somebody who's 22 or 23 years old, he doesn't have an interest in bringing them in off the collegiate level. He just feels like they're almost past their development age that they've spent so long.
I have 2 words for him.
Pardon?
Malachi Jones.
Tejan Buchanan. Those are 2 pretty good words too.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Kyrie Shelton is still in the league and doing, okay.
Don't agree with him, but that's his feeling. And
I get it.
There was a point where they were so highly successful that it was like.
And I'm shocked though, because that is probably the cheapest way to bring a player in, and we know that they don't like to spend money.
Well, and they have Jack Elliott, who they did get off college, the college market from West Virginia. All right, so that is that. Let's get back to you mentioned Brad a little bit earlier in the scrum in the post game, the scrum in the post groundbreaking last week that we were at. A colder day than today, even. It was pretty chilly in the city today.
It was windy.
But the one thing he said, and I think there was you caught one thing, and then I think he described how the atmosphere was going to be in a way that we've really never heard before. So here's Brad talking about and comparing it to another stadium, a great soccer-specific stadium in the league. This is Brad from last week.
5,000 people plus standing room, and we're going to have the tightest confines and the loudest stadium, and it's going to be an amazing experience. Like when we were in Cincinnati for the for the playoffs for round one, they have a 25,000 capacity stadium. We have a 25,000 capacity stadium. Their 25,000 seat stadium is on 23 acres. Ours is on 12. So essentially, and then we have height restrictions because of the LaGuardia flight path. We've raised up this land already at 6 to 12 feet because of the floodplain. So we're up off the ground, we're down, we're condensed, and we're going to have the same kind of capacity they're going to have. It's going to be insane. People aren't even going to believe it until they're inside it, and they're going to be like, "This is crazy." It's going to be amazing.
I like the description. It kind of pumps me up a little bit.
It does. You know what I want you to do when you get a chance, because it's sort of hard for you to do it now.
All right.
Because we're doing this show. But what I do want you to do is, and this is for everybody, go on Google after the show, or do it while and keep on listening. Go on Google and just do a search for Chicago Stadium, which is what the United Center replaced in Chicago. And then go look at the pitch of those stadiums. See, now this time I'll use pitch. Go look at the pitch of the seats, okay? It is like this. It is insane. And this is what our stadium is going to be like. It's going to be, everybody's going to be on top of each other. It's going to be deep. It's going to be loud with the roof and the roof over, because there's going to be an overhang also over the first deck for part of it. I mean, it's going to be insanely loud.
Love it. Love it.
Hell yeah.
And then there's the other stadium in the metropolitan area, soccer-specific stadium, is no longer Red Bull Arena. So Sports Illustrated Stadium, I tell you, when you come up with $13 million, money talks, right? I think that's what the figure was.
Oh,
and
I thought it was more than that. Wasn't it?
More than that? What am I thinking? Oh, you know what I'm thinking? I just saw a $13 million figure in regard to Bill Belichick, which I'll get maybe.
No, okay. That's something else.
So I forget what the figure is. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it was a great deal for the club. They talking about how they can enhance a lot of the different things and the game day experience and things like that. So the next time we go into Red Bull Arena, it
won't be that anymore.
Sports Illustrated Stadium.
Yeah, it's a 13-year. It's a 13-year naming rights deal. That's where you got the 13 from.
Okay. Does it? You have a figure?
I'm trying to see what the money was.
Because that's important.
But they made a lot of. I was sort of surprised that Red Bull would do that because of just the
and it's
using the name.
Yeah, and they're still the New York Red Bulls. Red Bull is in cooperation with this, but then Sports Illustrated gets the name, so obviously they're putting a lot into it. Right?
And it's not the magazine itself that's doing it; it's Sports Illustrated tickets, which is going to be or is, and I even never heard of them. So now at least it's making, now at least it's getting its name out there. But it's like competition to Ticketmaster and TickPick and SeatGeek and all of those.
Good point. Because the first thing I thought of when I saw this is like, all right, so you trimmed your roster at Sports Illustrated. You fired, I don't know how many people got canned within the last 2 years, and now you're going to pay millions for stadium rights. So maybe it's still a question to ask or a concern, but nonetheless, it's yep. So that's it. Sports Illustrated Stadium. Roberto, let's kick it around, man.
Let's do it.
So a new trivia question is how many countries are hosting the 2030 World Cup? And World Cup bids went out first for 2030 and then 2034. And it was a coordinated effort by FIFA. Now, they will not say this, but it's pretty obvious how all this went down. But the reason 6 countries are acting as hosts in 2030, 3 in Europe and 3 in, 1 in Africa, 2 in Europe, and 3 in South America, is so that the different regions of the country can be covered all at once to allow a Middle Eastern country to host in 2034 because there has to be separation over the years. You have to give a number of opportunities. So, so do you know the 6? What? There's the question. I hope I can come up with it. I don't have it in front of me.
Let's see. It was Spain, Morocco. I'm trying to think of the third European country. Oh, it just went, but it's
Portugal.
Paraguay, Argentina, and Uruguay. I mean, it should have been in Uruguay. It's the 100th anniversary of the World Cup, which is first held in Uruguay. But they're only playing one game in Paraguay, one game in Argentina, one game in Uruguay, and then the rest of it is going to be in Spain, Morocco, and
is it Portugal?
Maybe Portugal.
Oh my gosh, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, look it up. But anyway, no, but the reasons are obvious. Yes, Uruguay hosted the first World Cup. They won it in 1930. And they
cleared the field. Yeah, it is Portugal. Morocco, Portugal, and Spain, Paraguay, Argentina, and Uruguay.
So you got Africa, you've got Europe, you've got South America. So you have all these confederations covered.
They cleared the decks. And then they said, well, Australia is going to bid against Saudi Arabia. And Australia said, no, we're not. We know that this is rigged. We know that you're going to give it to the Saudis. Forget this. We're not doing it. So the Saudis are the de facto host in 1934 or 2034.
And so the drama was just gone. I just remember when Qatar was awarded in 2022 and they went right to Sunil Gulati and his face when that was announced because the U.S. was a candidate there.
And was the favorite.
And
England was a candidate.
And England also. So
David Beckham was ashen.
So there was
none of the fix was in.
None of the ashen faces were. So it's unfortunate that it's done that way. And now the human rights issue is going to come up and already has and will continuously until the cup is played. And then everybody's going to go, oh, greatest World Cup ever. Right. Fantastic. Well, it's just, everybody just at some point, everybody gets attached to the games, and then in Qatar, it worked because everything was so close. And I'll have to say, and, I would say supporters, fans of all these different countries, it was so much easier to get around and see the games. But you're also in a country that has different moral values on certain aspects. And
right. And here's how they fix their image issue. Give everybody equal rights in your country. And then you don't have to spend all of this to try to mask all that's going on. It's going to be hard because there's a lot of hardliners and all that. But at some point, you got to take a leap of faith that you're going to educate your people and you're going to do the right thing and you give everybody equal rights. And there's no second-class citizens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, religion.
And then
interpretation of religion.
And then other values as well. Like another reason to love New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy has signed into law, and I can't believe, and this is the way it was worded, a ban to ban books in public libraries. 19 states in the United States of America ban books because of reasons we know about: homosexuality, race, and it's just in my mind, it's
horrific. There shouldn't be censorship in the United States. This is what we were founded on.
But you have to write into law.
Not liberty to impose my will on yours.
Librarians in those states that ban books can be fined and they can be arrested if they have certain books in their library or fight against this. So that just came up now that we're talking about.
Yeah, we're not going to do politics here. No, I'm not doing this. I've gotten away from it.
All right, Champions League. So Juve 2, Man City 0, and of course the highlight of this is the American to an American for a goal for the first time ever in Champions League history. I believe that's correct, right? I think put that out there.
How did you phrase that?
Tim Weah served the ball to Weston.
Yes. Okay. Yes. A goal and an assist. Yes. Okay.
So, American to American. It never happened before. So that was.
And by the way, it was a gorgeous goal.
Yeah, it was a little behind.
Weah hits the first cross, but it bounces right back to him, and then he serves the second one, which is just like, oh, mwah, delicious. Yep. And McKinney just nails it.
It was wonderful. They both came in as reserves, and it was a great.
As a coach,
sir,
have you ever had a player, okay, who already did it once the year before, and now had to, and then you looked at him and you go, I really don't know about you. I don't think you're going to make my team. And then they went and they just proved you wrong. They worked their butts off and they showed that you were wrong, and they freaking forced you to start them because they became a key player in your team. Weston McKinney has now done this 2 years in a row with coaches that didn't want him. It's unbelievable.
If you contact Megan Ryan, one of my favorite players to coach of all time, she was a center back, and she was in the national pool, but she was slow of foot. Let's just put that out there. She didn't run well. She wasn't superior in technical skill. And she would tell, if you called her up right now, she'd say, yeah, coach, every year he tried to replace me, but he couldn't, because she would fight and work, and her positional sense, her leadership abilities. She got the people around her to do the work that she couldn't maybe. And her lack of pace, I can't remember a moment where that actually stuck her in a bad position. And those were some of the most successful years at Rutgers. So yes, I have had that player. And,
Good.
it's, but it's partly it's a challenge, but the other side of it is great credit to her, who became
100%.
Yeah.
And good for the coaches to recognize, all right, maybe we screwed up in this evaluation.
Yeah. So regarding Manchester City, now we know that they're in this ridiculous slump that's never happened under Pep Guardiola. So that's one thing we know. By the way, do I have it here? Yeah, Fabio Capello, the former England manager and Inter Milan. He today on Sky Sports Italia, he said this about Guardiola. Guardiola is a great coach, but he is far too arrogant and presumptuous. At times, he has even lost trophies because he wanted to prove that he was the one winning and not the players. So he dropped key figures from his side in big games. That was, in my view, an attempt to take the spotlight and the credit away from the squad. Now, I don't have any examples specifically. I'm just saying that came from one of the large voices in our game over the years, Fabio Capello. So that's
it's an interesting way of looking at it.
I find that hard to believe. But
yeah, I have it hard. I mean, he seems to be one of the great coaches of all time. And yes, he's coached amazing teams. He's always had amazing talent. And this is the first time that I ever remember seeing something like this happen to him. But boy, if there's anybody, you can show on the field how good you are. Okay? All you want to earn yourself a contract. Sometimes you have to subtract yourself on the field to show really how valuable you are. Rodri deserves a raise.
Okay. Yes, the injured Rodri, who
the team is since the day he left, the team has fallen apart.
Well, let's add this context, and then I'm going to introduce you to a guest I had this week on Sirius XM FC. Manchester City's in the middle, and look, there won't be an announcement or a decision till later and in the new year. But this week, the 115, which is actually 130 or 131 charges by the Premier League against Manchester City, the end of the hearings or court or whatever is happening with that is expected by the end of the week, which would be tomorrow. So those charges are there. Now, there's a guy that writes for The Guardian, but he's also the author of Inverting the Pyramid, Jonathan Wilson. So I had him on as a guest, and he has looked at this closely. So here's what he had to say. And there's some interesting stuff in here, Roberto, as to how this might all go down. But here's Jonathan Wilson, the author of Inverting the Pyramid, and we'll get to that a little bit too, talking about the situation with Manchester City.
hearing actually should finish, I think, probably next week, although we probably won't get the outcome until the end of February. And then with appeals, it could be well into next season.
Yeah.
But that clearly is a major issue, because almost whatever the outcome is, some people are going to be really, really, really unhappy. We've seen City's willingness to take legal action against the Premier League. I think were the case to go in a particular direction, you might see other clubs taking legal action against the Premier League. And that's one of the huge problems that football's administrators now have, that the entities who own clubs, be they states, be they oligarchs, be they sheikhs, be they even private equity, are so wealthy that they can essentially bully administrators by threatening legal action, which obviously is hugely expensive. And the football administrators often can't afford to or are unwilling to afford to fight that. So I think there's a lot of blood still to be spilled over that. You've also got the issue, and again, almost whatever the outcome is, could there be criminal prosecutions against people at City if they are found to have falsified accounts, which is a criminal offence? Could there be civil action from other clubs if they feel that either they haven't won the league, or they haven't qualified for Europe, or they've been relegated because of a team breaching regulations? Right. We saw when Sheffield United were relegated after Carlos Tevez had turned out to have been registered illegally by West Ham, and West Ham had to pay them £30 million. Now that's £30 million to one club nearly 20 years ago for essentially finishing one place below where they felt they should have finished. Now, if you have every club who's been in the Premier League over the last 10 years all looking for damages because they feel they finished...
And doesn't every place in the table come with a price? I mean, if you finish 8th instead of 7th, that also factors in, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very direct correlation. But you also have things like, say you fail to qualify for the Champions League. What does that mean in terms of the players you could sign the following season? What does it mean in terms of your capacity to market yourself to a broader audience? If you win that, if you're the league champions, then as say Leicester were, they can suddenly market themselves on a whole new level to anything they ever conceived before. So you have Arsenal, who haven't won the title since 2004. If they had been able to win the title, if Liverpool had won more than one, I mean, how do you put a figure on that? Yeah. But if you have 20 odd clubs all bring that kind of action, you're talking about a potential bill of billions. Yeah, there's sort of rumbling away in the background. And you say 115, it's actually either 130 or 131, depending actually how many you calculate. This is really a potentially existential crisis for football.
Oof. What a description, right? Yeah. Can you? But think about that. So if they're found liable, now other clubs are saying, "Well, we would have won the league." That's what he's all saying. And then how do you put a figure on that? It's true because marketing implications, and it's really crazy. It's really crazy.
It's going to be a very, very interesting decision. And as you said, even if the decision comes down, and let's say it's against Manchester City, then that they're going to appeal it, and it might be a long way away.
But part of what I'm saying before I play that is that how about the roster, the players at Manchester City, where there's a lot of nebulous stuff going on, and are there agents calling up other teams? Are there implications to how they're performing based on this distraction? So you could say that's an excuse. You got to, fight through it, which is what all of them are saying. We're going to fight through this. We're going to ignore it. We just have to play. But if their agents are calling other teams, they're aware of that,
I mean, this case has been going on for years now. It just didn't, spring up this year. And it hasn't stopped Manchester City from, winning title after title after title. So I don't think
that's different. We're talking about next season, points reduction this year or next year. They're probably not going to get relegated, but if they
might. I mean, Juve got relegated.
Yeah,
Rangers got relegated.
Well, it's.
There's no. I mean, if they really feel that they've got the case and they rule for them, they're probably going to do it, and then they're going to say, well, yeah, you're going to be relegated, but then you can fight it afterwards, or maybe they can't do anything until, it's fully settled. But, other teams have gotten relegated that you would think would never get relegated.
Yeah.
It can happen.
Now,
I mean, I hope that everything, comes out okay for the folks at Man City, but
yeah, absolutely. And what do we know? I haven't seen the paperwork.
you know that if they get relegated and stuff and that happens, it's coming out of our radio budget. So,
well, if they're relying on our radio budget to help pay off the legal bills, they're in big trouble. Did you? I don't know if we've ever talked about Ted Lasso. Did you watch Ted Lasso?
Oh, of course.
Okay. And do you remember inverting the pyramid? That Coach Beard was always.
Yes, he was reading the book, and there's a scene where he's actually reading the book.
Well, Jonathan Wilson wrote that book, so I brought it up to him. The Ted Lasso thing, it's really interesting, and I, along with many of my colleagues or anybody that I knew had the book, when we're watching that one episode early in season 1 where Coach Beard, he's reading on the flight to England to get this thing started. He's reading Inverting the Pyramid. Now, who was the first person to text you or call you and say, Jonathan, you're not going to believe this, man. I don't even know if you knew what Ted Lasso was.
I had no idea what Ted Lasso was. And it was just suddenly on social media, on Twitter, loads of people. I can't remember who the first was because it was sort of a deluge of sort of
I'm sure
50 people, and I was just bewildered. So I don't know. I have no idea what this is. Like, does this matter? Is this important? And I still haven't seen a second of a show.
Oh, you haven't?
It's on Apple TV. I don't have Apple TV.
Oh my God! We're gonna have to figure. You've got to watch this.
So it's a very, very odd thing that. I've been interviewed by the Boston Globe about this. You're talking to me about this. I was in Utah. I did some lectures at University of Utah and at Brigham Young, and the students I was lecturing, they wanted a selfie with me because, you're the Ted Lasso guy. Like, not really. Like, I genuinely don't understand what this is.
This is funny
what I have
because
seen is a very, very enjoyable spike in sales in the US.
I would imagine. I don't know how you've promoted this or how your publishers have over the years, but you couldn't have had a better advertising campaign than Brendan Hunt, Coach Beard, holding up this book, reading it in his coach's office. It's crazy. He's never seen it.
Apple TV is worldwide. He can watch Ted Lasso in England.
He said he doesn't have Apple TV. He's the guy I referred to at the beginning of the show, so he's obviously not watching MLS either.
No, he's not, but he can get it. It's actually, he doesn't even need the Apple TV box to get Apple TV. You can put Apple TV on Roku, on Amazon, on whatever Fire Stick. You can download the app and watch everything. Well, I didn't. You don't need an Apple product to be able to do it.
I didn't go beyond that. Maybe I'll write back to him and say, Roberto says there's a way to watch it. And in the meantime, I hooked him up with Carly Lloyd because he does a pretty cool podcast where he looks at past events and does like a real deep dive into them. Like he said, the one thing he wants to ask her is performing under pressure. Game-winning goal in the 2008 gold medal game, game-winning goal in the 2012 gold medal game, and a hat trick in the World Cup final. So she
killed it. She killed the World Cup final before it even started.
Hall of Fame. Nick Romano, I think do we have time? Do you want me to play this today or
let's go. Let's do Rick. Let's do Nick because he's fantastic.
All right. So let me find this because there's a little story that goes along with it. All right. So Nick Romano, along with Carly Lloyd, Chris Armas, I don't want to leave anybody out, Mark Abbott, and Mary Harvey, also on the 1991 World Cup championship team for the ladies. So Nick Romano, he's probably best known, and you got to figure he's the best keeper in the history of the league. I mean, he's got every he's like all-time leader in wins, saves, shutouts, and 59 saved penalties, Roberto, in all competitions. So he saved 64% of the penalties he faced in his career, which is crazy. That's crazy because the opta figure, like when you see expected goals, a penalty kick, the expected goal for a penalty kick is 0.80. It's 80%. He saved He only gave up 64% of the ones taken against him. So when he retired in 2019, and I've got to give credit to this writer, Christopher Kemrani from The Athletic, who contacted Nick and asked him, are you willing to share your secrets as to why it went well? And he had called him before, and Nick was like, are you crazy? I'm still playing. But then he said, okay. It involves Bobby Clark, who happens to be a friend of mine because we met in the Big East. He coached at Notre Dame. I'm at Rutgers. But Bobby Clark.
I'm thinking number 16 for the Philadelphia Flyers back in the 70s with no teeth and diabetes. But yes, go ahead. Bobby
Clark, listen to this, was the goalkeeper for Sir Alex Ferguson at Aberdeen in Scotland.
Definitely not the definitely not the Bobby Clark from the Flyers. Okay, continue.
The ball back then had laces. He played a long time ago.
Yeah.
It had laces. And what Bobby Clark figured out and noticed in studying players is that when they placed the ball to take the spot kick, they would turn the laces in a manner which would indicate which side they were shooting for. And he said it was incredible. It's like 85 to 90% of the time he guessed right because of this nuance. Well, he coached a guy named Ryan Nelson, who ended up playing in MLS.
I remember him.
At Stanford. Well, Ryan Nelson played at DC United, where Nick Rimando played. And so let's let Nick Rimando I think that's a proper setup. And then here's me with the Nick Rimando. I just recorded this today. It'll air next week on the Coaching Academy. There he is.
Bobby Clark, when he played goal for Sir Alex, there were laces on the ball. What he noticed along the way is that when the kicker placed the ball on the spot, he would turn the laces in a certain manner where he knew what side he was going to go. He would turn his hand. Ryan Nelson, a defender who you know very well at this point.
Played underneath Bobby.
Yes, played for Bobby at Stanford.
Yep.
Learned this. Then you guys played together at DC United.
Yeah,
and he told you this story, and now you're looking at how the attacking player or whoever, the penalty taker, places the ball. Do I have that right?
You're spot on. It was the Eastern Conference Final against New England. Before we got into penalty kicks, Ryan comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, listen, I have a little something for you. If you want to do it, no big deal." And I was like, "Yeah, please tell me." And he was like, "Just look to see where they put it down." An old goalkeeper of mine coached, note wherever they put that ball down, the percentages are they're going to go that way. So I was like, what do I have to lose? And I think I saved 2, maybe 3 that game. And I was like, all right, this has something to it, and just use it the rest of my career. And I didn't do it every single time because it didn't work, or I had like a hunch, or I had this gut feeling maybe he was going to go down the middle. Or I would say majority of the time I used that tactic. I was getting close to it, going the right way. That was the secret to my success on the penalties. I've had some goalkeepers that were with me through the years that I'm sure used it as well, and saving some PKs. But it's definitely something that I held onto for sure from Ryan because it worked.
You have to be very
just kind of look at the hands, where the ball was here. Okay, he's going to my left. He's going to my right, and I would just look. And there'd be sometimes I couldn't see it. And so I'd go up and I'd kick the ball or give it back to the striker, and the ref would say something to me. Then he had to put it down again. And then I'd be like, okay, got it. And then I would actually make the save.
That's the best part. If he didn't see it, he'd go and kick the ball away.
Awesome. So I want you to look something up, okay? Because
another
there are tells.
Another Google. Okay.
All right. And in tennis, go look for a video of Andre Agassi knowing where Boris Becker was going to serve every time. Because Boris Becker, he used to do something with his tongue when he was going to go towards the body, when he was going to serve into the body. And so he waited for special moments to take advantage of it. He didn't do it all the time. He knew it was coming, but he didn't take advantage of it because he didn't want to tip. But Boris Becker would tip his serves by doing something with his tongue. And it's just great. You have to watch it. And I was like, how do you figure this stuff out? I mean, that's why they're world-class athletes. And
Yeah.
And they're amazing. But if go look at that video, go look for that video. I'm sure it's
Well, I think
anywhere
I'm pretty sure
someplace.
Well, I'm sure it's I'm pretty sure it's a documentary, either on Agassi or on their.
Yeah, but there's shorts or reels on it where he just goes specifically for that he just talks about that part.
No,
you can go look for it in reels someplace. It'll show up.
Those things are fascinating. In baseball, it's the pitcher tipping his pitches. It's it's the great part about sports, right? I mean, you come up with something like that.
The Houston Astros cheating.
Yeah, well, I don't like that. Or John Herdman, allegedly involved with
Droney Boy.
Drones.
You can call him Droney Boy from now on.
Hey, if there's anybody listening from New Jersey, there's a huge drone thing going on in New Jersey. Have you read about this? There's over a lot of parts of the state. I haven't seen it, but Tab Ramos actually responded to Alexi Lawless. Lawless was to put out there, what's going on in Jersey? And Tab Ramos, wherever he lives in Jersey, he took a video of it and he said, it's 12 midnight and there's drones. So it's not particularly, and Phil Murphy, our governor, has said, look, there's nothing to be worried about, but no one will say what's going on. Like the FAA or whoever's in charge of these things, this airspace, they won't say anything.
That's. I mean, we don't know if it's who's doing it. So
yeah. All right, Roberto. Well, that's gonna do it for us. And good show.
Oh, I have one more thing. We have a American versus American tonight. There is soccer on tonight, and a good one. America Monterrey on Univision, Channel 41 here in New York, or TUDN, Channel 444 if you have Spectrum or wherever else you can watch it. It's going to be America playing host to Monterrey in Puebla because America, who normally would play in Estadio Azteca, Azteca is being remodeled. They don't like playing in Estadio Azul because their fans won't go there. That's where they were supposed to play. That's in Mexico City. Cruz Azul plays there right now. It used to be their old stadium before they moved back to Azteca. So they've decided to play their home game in Puebla, which it's a gorgeous. They've renovated the stadium, holds around 45,000 people, expected to be full for tonight. And that will be the first leg. And there are two Americans. Brandon Vasquez from Monterrey, who basically comes off the bench from Monterrey, scored a goal in the 5-1 win over Atlético San Luis against Dome's team, who, by the way, did themselves really proud, making it to the semifinals. And Alejandro Sendejas has proven to be maybe one of the top players in America. He had a great goal. He's been playing fantastic after starting the season injured. He's been playing absolutely lights out. So he's forcing his way onto the U.S. national team again. He's already gotten a couple of chances under Mauricio Pochettino. So we'll see. Also, the U.S. announced a couple of games against Costa Rica in the January window, one in Orlando, one in Miami. One's against Costa Rica. I forgot who the second one was.
Hey, your choice of a team that didn't make the playoffs and is going to win MLS Cup next year, San Jose under Bruce Arena, they would enhance their chances. Apparently, they're interested in Vasquez. So I don't know what the contractual situation is with him down there and what they would have to do, but that would be an illuminating choice.
He's been coming off the bench, but he got a really nice goal. He got a really, really nice goal against Santos in the second leg.
All right. So Shane, thank you so much. Our producer. For Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks. Good stuff, Roberto. And thanks for joining us here on NYCFC Views Live.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.